Happy Monday, degenerates! I forgot to hit the button to put myself in the damn stream, so I'm back here yelling all by myself. How is everybody doing this evening? Welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast. I'm your host, as always, your boy Clint, and we have got fights to talk about. That closes the end of 2024 UFC Tampa, last card of the year. That's it. It is over, but you guys know me. All the other content creators on here take a hiatus. They take a break. They go lick their wounds. They go spend time with their families. Not me. I'm going to spend time with my family, I promise. But what I try to do is make sure that the MMA fans out there in the world still have at least a little bit of content to sink their teeth into. We've got like 4 weeks, you guys. 4 whole weeks without any kind of MMA action whatsoever. And that's not great. So because of that, you guys know I'm going to do my very best to give you some stuff to talk about. Today, we are going to go ahead and recap UFC Tampa, the night that was. I'll interact with the chat a little bit. We'll have a bit of a good time. But then we will do a deep dive as far as the betting results for the year goes. The good, the bad, the ugly. I usually do a top 5 best bets, top 5 worst bets, stuff like that. Maybe we do an end of the year type of awards show. That's actually something I threw out there on social media. If you guys could help me out with that post, please let me know. I want to know. I've never done an awards show, right? I do everything through a betting lens. So it's always like best 5 bets, worst 5 bets of the year. It's focused mostly on me. I kind of want to expand that moving forward a little bit and do just a little bit more of like general MMA stuff, things that, you know, maybe your casual non-gambling fan can kind of get into and have a little bit of fun with it. So if you guys can think of a cool name for what the award should be that I am giving out, somebody thought we should call them the Clinties, which I'm like, I don't know if I can take that seriously. But you know, I would love to come up with some options as far as like what the awards are. And of course, everybody does fight of the year, KO of the year, sub of the year, comeback of the year, blah, blah, blah. I would love to think outside the box and let's get random, right? Like, let's have fun the way we always do. And let's make some awards that people don't see coming, right? Like, that's the idea. So help me out, you guys, especially after the stream is over. Jump in the comment section, leave me your ideas there so I can come back to them. Or if you can find that tweet out on social media, if you guys could reply to that, leave me your ideas so I've got some fodder to work with here. That would be amazing. What's going on, everybody? AWMD in the chat. I like your content, Clint. Your bets, though, not so much. Well, you and me both, AW. You and me both. We will do, like I said, a recap show in the very near future. But this was my worst year betting ever. Unfortunately, in 2022, I set that bar pretty high and I somehow found a way to pass it. So lots of mistakes, lots to learn from. We will recover. I do apologize, but I'm glad you enjoy the content because frankly, that is the main focus. Those of you guys who have been here with me more than not, that's the point of the show, right? I want to give you a fun show through a betting lens. You guys do whatever you want to do with your own money. You're adults out there, gamble responsibly. I'm not the best gambler, never tried to pretend to be, but I am better than this mighty, 82 unit bullshit that we're dealing with this year. So I do have to pick up the pace in that area just a little bit. My guy Dream says, let's fucking go. Got basketball practice during the show, but I'll watch later. Thank you so much, Dream. I appreciate you for always tuning in anyway. Good luck at basketball practice. Do not cheat on those wall squats. If you're not doing wall sits, you're doing it wrong for basketball practice, baby. Get on it. Let those thighs burn. Cade in the chat says, Clint is Muhammad Mokayev of the MMA podcast world, a valuable prospect being let go by his promotion only to eventually outgrow them. Cade, that is what is up. Thank you very much for the love and support, my guy. I really appreciate that. Especially after posting my annual results out there for the world to see. That means a lot. You guys know I love the support and I thrive off of it. So I appreciate the hell out of you for that one. Playing for Real says, let us know where the next home is. Well, home is home from now on, Playing for Real. Unless something crazy happens to change my mind, we're going home. My YouTube channel. I'm starting from scratch, you guys. I've been doing this podcast thing for 6 years now. 6 years. And I've helped build platforms and I've helped push things and I've helped build YouTube channels and stuff for everybody else. I've never done it for me. I've never done it for myself. I've never set up a Patreon. I've never gotten the tips or the super chats that have come directly to me. None of that stuff has ever been my own. It's always been for somebody else on somebody else's platform. The time has come. It's time for me to strike out on my own. It's time to be my own person. It's time for me to finally see just how far I can go with this thing. I probably should have done it several years ago. It probably has been a long time overdue, frankly. But we're doing it. So that's where it's going to be, especially if you can't find it. Leave a comment after the show is over. I'll be trying to reply to everybody, and that'll be my YouTube handle. Go get subscribed. That's where we'll be starting January 1st. What is going on, Tommy Unders? Vikings, that's what's up, baby. The door to the north is wide open. I hope y'all listen to me. I told you guys last week. I went on the Pub Sports Radio Pub Hub on Sunday morning, and I told everybody plus 500 Vikings to win the north. We're going to do it. The Bills beat the Lions. That door is wide open now, and the entire division is going to come down to the last game of the regular season. Vikings versus Lions. And we're going to win it. You can still get plus 300. It's down from 5 to 300, but I still like it. What's going on, Aaron? Dixon Cider, my people. Happy to always have you here. Raw Torque, my man, always transparent. You know it. That's the one thing. That everybody always, not everybody, sorry. That's the one thing that bothered the hell out of me. So like before I started doing content, I was gambling myself. I was just kind of starting to get into gambling in the first place. I watched a bunch of shows, and not so much the MMA shows that I watched, but like the football and the basketball, and people talk, right? They talk and they talk and they talk, and they tell you what they're betting. And if you're tailing them, especially if you're like tailing them blindly and you're losing, and then you come back on the show and you hear them be so positive and you hear them talk about how great it is and how everything's going just fine. And then they give you 5 more plays and they go 4-1 on those. Like it sucks, man. Like you feel like you're missing the boat somewhere. Pardon me, tickling the throat. Don't want to cough right into the mic. It always feels like you're missing the boat, right? They keep selling you on how great things are, and you doing exactly what they say. Somehow you're losing money. And so when I started my show, I said, I'm never going to do that. Even if you guys don't tail me, which right now the run I'm on, I suggest you don't. Pardon me. It's that time of year, folks. I do apologize. Got to clear the throat out here a little bit. And yeah, so even when I'm doing really poorly, I know there's people who are going to tail me. I know there's people who are going to take my advice. But because of that, I want to show you guys I'm going down with the ship with you, right? Like I'm not telling you guys I like this play and then not betting it myself. I'm not telling you guys, hey, I like this play, and then you just never hear about that play again after the guy gets knocked out brutally in round 1. That ain't me. I'm always going to be transparent. I'm always going to tell you guys where the picks go. I'm always going to tell you where the picks go wrong. I'm always going to tell you guys how good or bad I'm doing. And unfortunately, I've continued the time-honored tradition of alternating years. I am basically Billy Hugh. I'm just winning and losing, by knockout every other year is what it seems like here in these gambling streets. So coming off my new worst year ever, unfortunately, but we will go ahead and send it back the other way. You guys should know that we're in for a big 2025 if the pattern holds, right? Dylan asking any speculation on Dana's huge plans for 2025. I got a feeling it's going to be something we're not excited about. I hate to say it. But the big announcements for this year were the pandering of John Jones, the new MMA gloves that ruin knockout rates around the world, and a Cybertruck giveaway. So I've got a feeling that the huge plans are something that we're all just kind of like, like maybe they go to Spain, maybe he said it's something we would never in a million years guess. So what would we never guess in a million years? Tito Ortiz is joining the commentary crew. That's going to be the announcement. January 10th, right before the first card of the year next year, they're going to be like, and guess what? Tito's on the booth. You got Tito on the mic all night, baby. What's going on? The rest of the people rolling in here. We got Matt Norton. We got the It Factor MMA. Mark, what is going on? Mikey Jones, what is up? Oh, my goodness. All right. Dick's Insider, thank you very much for the useful tools and things of that nature. That's actually something that I am going to need to do some serious research on because I will be running my own YouTube channel from now on. So that's the kind of stuff that I'm absolutely going to be needing to dig into to make sure my stuff gets seen as much as possible. Aaron says I'd rather listen to Tito than Laura. Oof. I love Laura Sanko, man. Come on. I don't know why everybody hates on Laura Sanko. I think she's awesome. She's very, very knowledgeable, mind you. Like, I know a lot of people want to hate on her, but she is extremely knowledgeable. All right, guys. I do have, believe it or not, a date tonight. My Minnesota Vikings are playing the Bears, and we need desperately to win this game tonight because, like I mentioned, that NFC North window is open, but only if we win this game. So we have got some serious work to do, and I cannot be sitting here on a podcast jawing about last week's card where I got my ass handed to me while my Vikings are kicking off to start the game. Plus, we're doing dinner with the family. So got to wrap this one and get out of here sooner than later. So we should probably get into the fights. If we're going to recap last week's card, we probably should do that, right? No, Jared. I actually have them anchored in a parlay. I'm not taking them -7. If you guys watched I went on, good old Pub Sports Radio. I went back there on Sunday morning to give my picks out, which I did actually pretty well this week again. I'm actually competing in their contest for the first time. Usually I shit the bed, but I'm doing quite well. I have them anchored in a parlay. I just need them to win the game. I did that back when they were -6, so they're now up to -7. And for me, it's Vikings or pass, frankly. The last time we played the Bears, they backdoored us and we went to overtime, and it was way closer than it needed to be. Knowing my Vikings, I've got a feeling this is going to be a bit more of a defensive battle. I think that we're going to focus on not making the same mistake twice because we kind of rode that game out and let them back in. We kind of were like, all right, on to next week. We're up by 3 scores, right? And then we just kind of let them do whatever and didn't make completions on offense, and the defense kind of let them in a little bit, and then they got the onside kick. And so I think that memory is going to weigh heavily on the Vikings, and I actually think you're going to see the defense step up in a really big way. Matt says feels like an Aaron Jones night, and Matt, unfortunately, it very much does. And I'm actually really upset about that. Because you guys, Dick's Insider, please, no, not the 2 and 3 TD sprinkles. You guys, my Dynasty Fantasy Football League, I am playing against Aaron Jones. I've got Addison and I've got Bowers, and the last guy that he's got is Jones. I'm down by like 13 points right now. I can win that. I absolutely can win that. If Bowers can get fed the way he used to, and if Addison can catch a long missile for a touchdown, I'm going to win. But if it's a 2-touchdown night for Aaron Jones, I am fucked. It's a very unfortunate situation for me to be in. I don't want to be rooting against Aaron Jones having a big night, because if he has a big night, this game probably looks easy. I'm hoping it's a Cam Akers night, right? Like I'm hoping they give Cam half the touches, and when one finally breaks, it's Cam running down the sidelines and not Jones. Like that's what I'm praying for. So yeah, Dixon saying bet on Jones, lose the league, win your bet. I hear you. Unfortunately, I'm not good with those emotional head situations, because if I win into the next round for the fantasy football playoffs, but I lost money on, betting against Aaron Jones, and I just feel like a dumbass, especially if I lose the next round of playoffs. So I'm just going to sit pat, man. I've got enough on the line already as is. I'm just going to root for Addison instead of Jones. Frankly, I think Hawkinson's the man that's like sitting out on the outside that people are kind of forgetting about tonight. I think TJ Hawkinson might get more touches than people are realizing. But enough about football. We got to get into the MMA. Half of my audio listeners that are tuning in here on like Thursday randomly just turned off the podcast because they're like, this bro he's got a podcast about MMA and he's talking about football all the damn time. Oh my goodness. Mikey D got the Vikings at 80-1 to win the Super Bowl. I love you, Mikey. That is beautiful. Beautiful work. You love to see it. I actually think there's an outside shot, but again, we got to get back to the MMA. All right, guys, UFC Tampa. night started off really well. Pierre Rodriguez and Josephine Knudsen. We called that fight. I'm pissed off, you guys. I left my balls at home again. I should have been all over Pierre Rodriguez. I wanted to watch this one live and make sure she wasn't just like super outclassed on the feet, because I felt like there was going to be a discrepancy there standing. And so I didn't lock the bet in pre-flop when she was like plus 195. And she just mauled this girl. I mean, we always knew that that would be the path to victory. It's just one of those ones where I'm like, I'm not positive she'll do it. If she doesn't stick to the game plan, this fight could look close. They rob her on a split decision. You know, it was that kind of a thing where I was like, I don't know that I really want to dive in feet first. So I ended up betting minus 130 live. I did tweet that out. I posted that for everybody. So I jumped in at the end of the first round because by then it was obvious, right? Like she had hit takedowns. Josephine Knudsen was cooked. She already was breathing hard. She had already been taken down 3 times. And it was like, Pierre is just going to walk over the top of her at this point. She's going to stick to the grappling. That's obvious. And we know Josephine slows down when she gets tired. There's no way she is turning the tables on this one. So after the first round, I jumped in. I probably should have bet more. So just missed opportunities left and right. I called Pierre Rodriguez pulling this as the upset. That was her path to victory. I didn't have the guts to play her money line pre-flop, and I didn't bet her big enough in game. So like just all over the place. I just screwed the pooch on that one after having the perfect read on that fight. Now let's talk about perfect reads, baby. Dangerous Davy Grant. Can we just applaud the man, the legend himself? Dangerous Davy Grant came out and did exactly what we needed him to do. He mauled Ramon Tavares. And I know people were talking about how clean Ramon's boxing is, and yeah, it looked good, and he rolled with punches, and Davy Grant's the better MMA fighter, guys. Like he always was. He just pieced this man apart. He chopped his legs up, made Tavares start switching stances at the end of the fight. And yeah, I'm going to have to take muted cough breaks here for a couple different times throughout the show, apparently. I haven't talked very much today. I tried to keep a lid on it because I knew my throat was a little scratchy. So I tried to prepare for this. Dixon says Ramon needs to go to BKFC. And I actually think that's probably the move, man. He probably would do well there. But he's 30 years old. You know what I mean? He's already like at the point where he's considered in his prime. He's not going to just suddenly Carlos Prates, right? Fuck me. He's not going to pull. There are so few guys that do that. Alex Pereira and Carlos Prates are the only guys you can count on one hand that actually pull that shit off. I did not think Ramon Tavares was going to be the next Carlos Prates and suddenly become a well-rounded MMA fighter. Davy Grant kicked him so much, busted him up, hurt his arm, hurt his legs, did everything right. He did get caught and dropped in the second round, and that was terrifying, especially with all the neck surgery things and stuff like that people were talking about. So it was very frustrating when he got hit like that. I was scared. I was terrified. Like my butthole puckered up real hard because I was like, oh no, Ramon Tavares is going to absolutely kill the guy. And thankfully, Davey just kind of went right back to work, and you love to see that from a veteran. He did it perfect. Got plus 105 before the line flipped and moved. He was good as a favorite. I told everybody that on my Friday show. I was fine with laying chalk on Davy Grant. And the worst part about this recap is going to be doing the, celebrate your MMA, pay for your holiday MMA parlay recap here, because Davy Grant was the first leg of my holiday parlay. And unfortunately that parlay missed, but we'll get there. It felt really good right out the gates here though. Miranda Maverick and Jamie Lynn Horth, the fight basically went as expected, right? I actually jumped in live on Jamie Lynn Horth for a half unit at plus 500 because I thought the fight came down to round 3. And if she can shuck one takedown, she'll win this fight. It was 1-1 going into the third. Miranda Maverick was having a real hard time getting this big, strong lady to the ground, as we knew she would. And if in round 3 she struggled again and she ended up just taking a couple extra big body kicks or something like that, Jamie could have ran away with a split decision on that one. It would have been close. It would have been greasy. But at plus 500, considering what I'd seen, I had to take just the tiniest of stabs at it. It was a close fight. 29-28 Miranda Maverick ruins everybody's night that plays the spread. And everyone was talking about the sub. And it just, you guys, Miranda Maverick is incredibly overrated. Don't get me wrong. She's young. She is improving. She knows how to win fights. but she is never paying off a minus 500, minus 600 price tag, especially against somebody like Jamie Lynn Horth with the physical tools that she has. Miranda has to be a physical bully. I know Miranda Maverick at this point like the back of my hand, and we're just predicting the way her fights go damn near perfectly. Everyone talking about like the round 2, round 3 sub, and it's like, guys, that's not happening. Like, Jamie Lynn Horth is not going to give her that chance, and Miranda's going to be hanging on for dear life at the end of 3rd round, just trying to get this big bitch down. Like, it's not, she's not going to sub her. I'm sorry. So, almost caught another big juicy dog live on that one. But Miranda Maverick, as anticipated, the minus 200 by decision prop bet cashes for everybody who decided to chalk donkey up for that one. Woof. Yeah, Twizzly Rich says Davey Grant was so free. Indeed, he was. Raw Torque agreeing that he showed that veteran savvy, which is really what we were counting on. Let me see here. Dixon Cider. Everyone got too excited when they saw Miranda half naked at ceremonial weigh-ins and the money poured in. Absolutely. Oh man. It's her by decision. If she's got a big size and strength advantage on somebody, then you can look for the finish. Then you can look for the sub, for the rear naked choke, that kind of stuff. But if she doesn't have that bully advantage on her opponent, it's gonna be a decision. It's just always going to be a decision, and it's always going to be 29-28. She'll find a way to give away a round in there. The Miranda Maverick fades will come, people. Like they will. And the prices are going to be generous when they do. Miles Johnson, Felipe Lima. This was the second leg of our Pay for Your Holiday MMA parlay and the first leg of just a normal parlay for me, Felipe Lima, getting it done. I love this kid. Finally, my anti-Miles Johns bias is starting to pay off. I think this kid is just super smooth. He's somebody the UFC likes, and jumping straight into the deep end. I know they fought at 145. They're both 135ers. So I think this is just like a we didn't cut weight type of situation. If they cut down the weight, frankly, I think Lima probably has more success because we've seen how Miles Johns tires out and slows down. He almost got that sub prop for me, you guys. He was right there. He jumped on it several times. He had Mike's neck wrapped up. Like, Mike was savvy to it. He knew what was going on. He didn't give it up. He didn't give up the tap, unfortunately. So I thought we were going to hit another big one here, but it does go to decision. We do cash the first leg of the parlay. The read was right, spot on, and we move on everything, basically. This is where it all fell apart, though. So apparently I owe Sean Woodson an apology, you guys. I've talked about how he's so tall, he's so gangly. He's got tall man's defense. He doesn't hit very hard. His wrestling has improved just a little bit, but it's not enough for me to think he's like a great MMA fighter or anything like that. Now, here's the thing. I am not going to completely backpedal everything I've ever said about him. He is a size bully, and that is the main story of his success. I massively overrated Fernando Padilla. That's what happened here. I massively overestimated Fernando Padilla. Now, as you guys know, I am a lives in the gray area type of person, right? I am not the person who you see this, especially today, right? With politics. I am all red. I am all blue. Fuck you if you don't think the same way I do. Like, no. It's not like that, and it can't be like that, and it shouldn't be like that. And especially when gambling, if you're that pig-headed, you're never going to succeed. You got to live in the gray state. You got to flow, and you got to be understanding of what you did wrong. And that's where, especially when people talk about like value on bets and like only a winning bet is a good bet. Like, I just can't agree with that, because if my process was correct and the result was close, but it didn't quite get there, I don't want to overcorrect the wrong way the next time. So like, you need to understand that the process getting to that bet was still good in itself, even though that outcome didn't go your way. So that's what I'm doing here. I owe Sean Woodson an apology. He is apparently better than I gave him credit for. I will fully admit this. I still think he's a size bully, and I still think somebody with the right frame and the right skill set is going to cause him problems, a la Julian Erosa, right? Fernando Padilla was not that guy. When they give this man a step up in competition, when he does fight for a number, when he's taking on people that are ranked, I'm going to fade him. I'm going to keep doing it. I will, with the right opponents. One thing that I have done very poorly, and I know this isn't the whole like 2024 gambling recap show, right? We'll save most of that for later. But one thing that I have done this year that I made the mistake and learned the hard way, the mistake in 2022. But apparently, after a year or two trip around the sun, I have forgotten is that you don't fade shit with shit. Now, in this case, it wasn't exactly that. I have high hopes for Fernando Padilla, and he looked gassed after like 2 minutes. I don't know what that was all about. He talked about how this was the best training camp of his life, and he put so much work in, and he was ready to go, and he had done like an extra 2 weeks, or like he was like at the peak of his powers. He was on his game, and I know you can't always believe everything a fighter says, but after hearing all of that, for him to be slowing down and like open mouth breathing 2 minutes in and then walking face first into punches, I'm like, something ain't adding up. Like, what was that? What the fuck was that? So that was not what I expected out of Fernando Padilla. So combination, right? I was doing this. I got Padilla up here. I got Woodson here. The reality is I was too high on Fernando Padilla, and I was a little underrating of Sean Woodson. We will correct that moving forward. But unfortunately, that's where the pay for your MMA holiday parlay died. The 17-1 shot that was supposed to bring home Christmas for absolutely everybody died on that hill with Fernando Padilla. And I am upset because I could have bet the under in that fight. And there were one or two other totals that I was going to play that I thought about using in that spot, but I was just so blinded by my Fernando Padilla is going to win this fight that I threw him straight into the parlay without even thinking about it. I was going to play the over 1.5 on the Jacobe Patrino fight. We would have probably needed another leg because that was relatively chalky. But I was also going to play like violence, doesn't go the distance, Billy Q and Cub Swanson, which I ended up leaving off my card altogether in general. And that was a massive mistake. And then also the violence bet for Johnson and Aztar. So like there were a couple of other options for what I could have done instead that I left on the table. And that's, I think, what frustrated me the most, because I want to hit, of all the parlays I've ever given out, the pay for your MMA holiday parlay that I put so much effort into every single year, I want to hit that thing. And I am so close every year. It's always one leg. It's like a 5 or a 6 leg, and it's always one damn leg that I look back and I'm just like, oh, like I was there. I had it. Oh, we will try again next year, guys. Santa's coming next year, I promise. Yoel Alvarez and Drakkar Klose. My God. Drakkar Klose, you saw the fear of God. Like, Yoel Alvarez touched him once, and he was like, he wanted nothing to do with that. And then the flying knee that Alvarez hit, he went for a standing guillotine after that, and he realized that Klose was already laying in his arm limp, and like looked over at the ref after a couple shots and was like, yo, he's gone. It was insane. That was the easiest spot on the board, pre-sight and hindsight, was Yoel Alvarez inside the distance minus 140. I should have max bet that thing, dude. I should have put so much more money on that. It was a leg in the holiday parlay, which by now was already broken and dead. So I was even more upset about it. That, you know how if you miss a leg in a parlay, you kind of want to just be wrong the rest of the way. Like, I know that's totally irrational, but it's like, I want to be so wrong that this thing just never had legs. It's less painful than being like, I was right there. I was right there. I was so close. And that's what I'm left with, unfortunately. I had it. It was in my hands, you guys. It was in my hands and it fell apart. Oh, man. Absolutely killing me. Let's see here. Let's see. Christopher says, hit the line on DraftKings field goal props. Both teams to kick a field goal over 33 yards. That's the 15-yard line. Pays plus 100. Both games. 200 pays 1,000. Wow. I don't mind that. I don't mind that, Chris. I really don't. There's probably going to be a lot of kicking tonight. I feel like that's a pretty decent little prop there. Good luck on that. I like that. The preliminary final, Michael Johnson, Ottman Aztar, it went exactly as anticipated. I kind of thought Aztar was going to end up cracking Michael Johnson, but frankly, I talked all week about how Johnson just falls apart sometimes. And it seems like the athleticism is leaving him just a little bit. It isn't enough. Anyway, He's another guy that I think, like Sean Woodson, if he climbed the ladder a little bit, would immediately run straight back into problems. But it looks like he's still got some of that speed. He's still got some of that flow state. And Aztar just never had anything for him. Aztar couldn't find him in there. That was easy peasy lemon squeezy for everybody who decided to bet Michael Johnson that night. And congratulations to all of you who did. I know there's a lot of people who did, but I just couldn't stomach laying 2-1 or higher on Michael Johnson. I passed on the fight. I said my gut says that Aztar clips him at some point and knocks him out, but stayed away from it for a betting perspective. And then so for the main event, Navajo Sterling had one of the most disappointing fights of all time. Tuco Tokos, a guy we all expected to just die quickly in round one. Navajo kind of boxed him up for 15 minutes, showed a well-rounded MMA game, also showed he's still very green. He still needs a whole lot of seasoning. And Tokos showed that he had a good chin and he hung in there and he took that beating. If anybody played that decision prop, good on you, because that was the one nobody saw coming. The over 1.5 was this close to making my betting card. I thought about that at the last second, but ended up passing on it because, you know, what we saw in Toko's last fight. So that was a fight I really didn't have a whole lot of interest in, frankly. And Navajo Sterling was a fighter I wasn't very familiar with. So I was fine just kind of leaving it alone. But that going all 15 was very surprising indeed. Adrian Yanez and Daniel Marcos. Oh, boy. So I did have Marcos in the pay for your holiday MMA parlay. But frankly, in this fight, I did not want to double down on him because as the week kind of went on, as much as I thought Marcos was going to win the fight, I also was like, man, I think I missed a little something here. So I talked about how I didn't think that Yanez was going to be able to go a full 15 with Daniel Marcos. The way Marcos changes it up, the way he works to the body, the way he switches from body to head and all that. We've seen Yanez get cracked a couple times. I was like, man, I just don't think he can go the full 15. And the more I kind of looked at it, the more I was like, man, I think I got that wrong. You know, I was kind of thinking it was going to be a Marcos knockout. And then right before the fight started, it was just like that I see Jesus moment where the light comes down and shines right in my eyes. And I was like, oh my Lord. I was like, this is Marcos by decision all day. And it was a split. This was a very close fight. This was very competitive. Minus 200 on Marcos was very much the wrong number. People who were taking that stab on Yanez had the right idea. He was in this fight for the entire duration of it. It was a good fight. It was a fun back and forth kickboxing matchup, and Yanez had his moments, man. It was fun to watch. So, you know, if the parlay had still been alive, it would have been that greasy split decision bounce that we needed to get to be able to advance, and I would have been very grateful for that. Happy to have the right side, right? Happy to get the right call on Marcos, but definitely one that I guess the read was just a little bit off, and I got to give myself not credit. I got to keep myself accountable for not quite having the right read on that. Pause. 1 second. You can always feel them coming. You can feel the tickle just kind of building, and you got to fight it off. And there's only so much you can take before you need the water. And I apologize. You're going to get the raspy voice that goes with that a little bit. I'm fighting through some stuff here. You guys know me. I don't take sick days. I don't take no sick days on this podcast. I bring you MMA content always, even if I'm sick and hacking and wheezing and trying to force myself through it. You're going to get it. You're going to get your show. Vitor Patrino, Dustin Jacobe. Oh my Lord. So I talked about how I felt like Vitor Patrino was a fraud, right? I talked about how I felt like he was massively overrated. He's Paulo Costa 2.0 and not even that good. That's what I feel about Vitor Patrino. I wanted to play Dustin Jacobe by decision. I wanted to play the over 1.5. And you know what? When this fight opened up, the over 1.5 was like minus 160. And I went, I need to bet that. But by the time I did my podcast on Monday, it was minus 200. So I was like, damn it, dude. Like, I wanted to play this very, very nice over 1.5 at minus 160, and it was long gone. Nobody was getting that number. So then I didn't want to lay minus 200 on it, especially when both guys have knockout power in this weight class. I was like, damn it, that's too much of a price jump for me. So I ended up passing, stayed off of it. I didn't take the dog shot on Jacobe. I really wanted to play the DraftKings spread. I talked about this on my Friday show, you guys, and I really hope this helped some of you get to a bet because I talked about how plus 5.5 for Jacobe was crazy. I was like, usually Usually they offer 3.5s on the spread, meaning if you lose a split decision, then you still get the win because those 3 points on the spread. The 5.5 essentially affords you 2 additional judges' scorecards. So I'm like, I got to go do the math, right? Like this is where the spreads get really confusing in MMA. But I'm like, so wait. So essentially, it could be a 29-28 unanimous decision now for Vitor, and you could still cash the ticket. Like all you need is this thing to go the 15 minutes without like a point deduction or something. Like I got to do again, I got to go back and actually figure out the 5.5 versus the 3.5. But I was like, that's ridiculous that they're giving you an extra 2 judges scorecard points on this bet. And it was plus 120, you guys. It was plus money for Jacobe to just be able to go the distance and hang with Vitor Patrino. Massive missed opportunity for me. I was sitting there, I was staring at it. I talked about it. I brought it up. I hope it helped some of you guys. But at the end of the day, I did not grind it down into a fine dust enough for me to be able to understand the gem that I had, right? Like it was right there in front of me. And even without playing the money line, just the plus 5.5 would have been the easiest bet of all time. This fight was 1-1 going into the third round. Guys, I was at my my annual holiday party, right? We host an annual holiday party, get all the friends together and stuff like that. So we were having a good time, but I can't be absolutely dialed in on this card the way I normally am during that party because I'm hosting, right? So like I kept an earbud in so that people weren't too suspicious of me. It wasn't up on the TV, so I was ignoring people and staring off into space. I mostly listened because I couldn't watch. When I had brief moments where I could pull my phone out for 60 seconds, I would watch just a little bit of the fight and then put my phone away. I looked at the betting line on this one, and I saw at the start of the third round. Sorry, pause for the cough. At the start of the third round, Dustin Jacobe was 10-1. And I was like, what is going on? And so I'm trying not to live bet too much because I'm not dialed in. I'm not completely focused. I'm not watching every second of this fight. And I'm staring at my phone and I'm like, 10-1. Like we've seen some robberies, man. I'm like, we've seen some judges robberies. And I was like, and then all of a sudden it grayed out. That I was like, oh, okay. Like I was starting to reach for it. Like the finger was getting right there. And then it grayed out. And I look back at the fights. And he uncorks the most ungodly right cross you have ever seen in your life. I mean, coaches, when you're like, if you've ever gone to like a kid's karate class or something like that, and they teach you to, break boards and bricks, you punch through. When I was playing football, that was always the thing, right? You don't run at the person that you're tackling. You run through them. You find something behind them and you pin them to that wall. You run through them. That's how Jacobe threw that punch. That was the biggest fuck you punch I've ever seen. He sat on that and he put everything into it. Vitor Patrino is still lying on the canvas alone in Tampa right now. Like he has not moved. He's still down. It was ridiculous. And I was this close to getting in on the money line at 10-1. My God. Insane. Dixon says, do I normally wear a red tuxedo to my Christmas party? No, I don't. I do clean up just a little bit, but no tuxedo here for me. Raw Torque says, win live betting. Never listen to the commentary. Always believe your eyes. Absolutely. That's a very valuable little nugget there for anybody because the commentary do tend to be biased and they do tend to miss stuff. And they're especially, John Anik really is the only one that thinks about it from like a betting perspective correctly. It's always so hysterical to me to see DC when he's like, those odds are no, like that doesn't make any sense. And it's like, you just don't get it. I would love to bring DC on my humble little podcast, sit him down and talk to him about these betting numbers, just so he gets a little peek behind the curtain, just so he gets it. Plus he's my favorite heavyweight champion of all time. So it would be awesome to do a show with DC someday. Maybe, you never know, right? You never know. Menno Cop and Bruno Silva, my God. What a banger. What an absolute banger this fight was. Bruno Silva just refused to die, you guys. Like the shots Manel Kopp cracked him with would have put down so many other people. And Manel Kopp hit that flow state. We saw the guy the UFC brought over to challenge for the title on Saturday. Manel Kopp was moving like he had air under his feet. He was so light. He was so quick. He showboated a little bit too much for my liking. Don't get me wrong. I like a nice timed showboat, right? I like when you miss the head kick in there. I like a little bit. Don't get me wrong. And plus, it can make your opponent, angry and get them over aggressive, that kind of thing. There's definitely some strategy to it. But I don't like it to the point that Kopp did it, because literally half the second round was him showboating. Like, he missed opportunities for more offense by showboating. That was too much. But it was a phenomenal performance from him. Absolutely amazing. And I'm sad that I didn't take him by KO, because I kind of had that thought of KO all week. But again, he can finish that fight however he wants. He can sub anybody. He's a black belt. We've known him to not take a fight seriously and go to decision. I had a feeling this would be a fight where he would show up and really put his best foot forward. Missed opportunity. Had him anchoring a parlay. So 2-leg parlay, did go ahead and cash on Manel Kopp. That was great to see. But really missed opportunity. Missed out on the plus 225 by knockout, which I thought was a good look, especially considering how much smaller Bruno Silva was than him. So anybody who got in there and made some money on that Manel Kopp KO, congratulations. Here we go. Co-main event, Billy Q. Never trusting this guy ever again with my money. You guys, I messed this one up. One thing I've talked to you all about a lot on this show is how I don't want to bounce back and forth, right? That was a big error for me in 2022, one that I have not forgotten, mind you, where if I start on one side of the line and then I find myself on the other side of the line, I want to just kind of leave it alone, because it's like I'm obviously not seeing it clearly enough. I am being persuaded to take a different action than I was going to a couple of days ago. And when people get in your head, or when you hear a narrative and then you start regurgitating it and you end up flipping on a pick like that, it almost never ends up correct, right? You got to be able to trust your balls. You got to trust yourself. You got to trust your gut. You got to stick with what you know and what you see. And what I knew and what my eyes told me was that Cub Swanson was very live in this fight, was that Cub Swanson still had it, was that he was still fast, that he still had pop in his hands. And I even brought up the fact that he knocked out not one, but two cardio monsters already in his past. So these guys that try to just kind of melt you by staying on you, he had the power and the ability to hang with them and then find that button and put them down. And he's done it before. So I was like, I talked about potentially playing Cub Swanson and potentially playing Cub Swanson by KO. But this is where I did get it wrong, because I thought it was going to be an early thing. I did think the longer this fight went, the more it favored Billy Q. I thought the deeper this fight went, the more Billy would take over. It's crazy to me that Cub caught him in the third. That's wild to me, right? Because I would have thought Cub would slow down just a tad and Billy would take over. I had 3.1 units at minus 155 is what I ended up jumping in on. And this one was crazy because there was a massive late line move. I looked at this one on my phone and Billy was up to damn near 2-1, like right before the fight kicked off. So there was massive late steam on Billy Q. And I don't know what it is, guys, but in 2024, if I beat a line move, I'm losing that bet. Like, if it's a Davey Grant situation where like the dog flips to being the favorite, like that's a legitimate move. And those are the ones that I did well with. But the ones like this, where it's like I got minus 155 and then he goes off at minus 200, that is all just dead money. I don't know why, but like those are the spots where you feel really good about your spot because you beat the entire market. Well, didn't mean shit on Saturday. Cub with an absolute 1-2 from hell puts Billy down out freaking cold. And Cub's probably hanging it up too. Like that might have been the last one right there. So, retiring fighters this year. I don't know what it is, but this year, if a fighter is retiring, especially if they haven't announced it, somehow I end up on the wrong side of it. Whether it's betting on them and then they take the gloves off at the end of the fight, or in this situation, betting against them, turns out they actually are retiring, and I was right. That was a legitimate angle. there was a possibility that was, in the back of their minds, and they end up pulling out the win anyway. It's just like, fuck, dude, these retiring fighters are killing me in 2024. So that was disappointing. And then I did go ahead and throw a very small poke at Colby Covington in the main event. Just understanding that Joaquin Buckley had never been the 25-round distance. We've seen him taken down. We've seen him gas out. We've seen him slip up later in fights before. He's a new man at 170 pounds, or a new man. So, sorry, that was a bad joke. No, I did throw a small poke at Colby, and that was mostly because I fully intended to bet Colby live, but I knew I was going to be at the Christmas party. So I didn't want to just not have that bet in my pocket like an idiot. Turns out I could have waited. We were done before the main event. But I could have waited, and it would have been fine, and I could have dodged this bullet because Buckley beat the brakes off Colby in the first round. I mean, busted the side of his head open, cut his eye up, had him bleeding all over the place. He was touching his face. I mean, like, you could see just how uncomfortable Colby Covington was in that fight. I wanted to see that the cardio checked out. I wanted to see that the wrestling checked out. I wanted to see him be able to wear Buckley down. And frankly, you guys, he was starting to turn the tide a little bit towards the end of that third round. And that's where you really want Colby Covington. You want Colby in round 4. You want Colby in round 5. Buckley was slowing down. Now, not to the point that, like, okay, so I know people were getting like fraud checked and stuff like that online about saying that Colby was winning that fight. He was not winning that fight. You guys, I had money on Colby Covington. He was not winning that fight. But if it doesn't get stopped for the cut, Buckley ended up on his back in round 3 and gave away round 2. He ended up on his back a couple of times, and he was really starting to slow down. And we could see Colby was having some more success on the feet. He was landing some of his combos. He was pushing Buckley backwards. If that finish doesn't come, I'm just saying, I wanted to see round 4 and 5 as a guy that had round 3, 4, and 5 sprinkles on Colby getting a finish in those rounds. I don't know that it would have changed it. Colby doesn't have any kind of power. He was not getting any kind of respect from Buckley with his hands when he did land. But you never know. You just never know. If Colby gets Buckley tired, gets him on his back, and is able to work him from a position where he tires out, you just never know how those fights are going to end, right? So, unfortunate stoppage. And that's another thing, man. Retiring fighters and cuts. I've been on the wrong side of every damn cut this year. I have seen fighters with their eye completely swollen shut where they guess the right number, where the ref gets in front of them and is like, how many fingers am I holding up, bro? Because you can't see their eyelid. And they're like, 2? And the ref's like, well, fuck me. He got it right. Like, well, I know he can't see it, but he said the right number. And so they let the fight continue. I lose that one. But every single time someone has a cut that the doctor comes in and is like, no, that's too much. It's over. That's my guy. It's always my guy. Oh, so my luck is just absolutely brutal right now with those types of situations, unfortunately. I am glad, you guys. I am glad to have a little bit of a break. I'm glad to have a little bit of a breather. I get a little mental vacation here from the constant research and breakdowns and things like that I do. But I am also very much excited for the future, because what I'm going to do is get geared up to support myself. I'm going to get geared up to have things going in a brand new direction for us. And I appreciate you guys hanging with me. I appreciate you guys always supporting with me and riding with me, regardless of the results, the ups and downs, the lefts and rights. We're going to have fun. We are always going to put on an entertaining show. We are always going to have a good time right here on this podcast. And I'm going to do my very best, you guys, to make it better for those of you, especially those of you who support me. So we're going to go places moving forward from here. That is the UFC Tampa recap. That's all I've got for you tonight, you guys. I'm going to go eat some food. I'm going to hang out with my family. I'm going to watch the Vikings crush the Chicago Bears after clinching a playoff spot, and I'm just going to enjoy every minute of it. Please don't let it be a nail biter where they come in sloppy because they clinched a playoff spot. Please, Vikings, get out there and win this game for me. That's what I'm going to go and do. Raw Torque saying, see you in the new year. Best wishes, everyone. Raw Torque, my guy. That's the one thing I do want to let you guys know. The new year ain't it yet. We've got 2.5 weeks worth of 2024 left over. I will do my very best to keep you guys entertained during that time. I'm going to have shows on Monday on this channel as always. So the next 2 weeks in a row, the 23rd, yes, Christmas Eve, and the 30th, getting near to January 1st, I will have shows on this channel for you. We're going to do, top 5 best worst. We'll do the full betting recap, all that kind of stuff. I'll make sure you guys have some MMA action to chew, to sink your teeth into. I am not going to leave you cold and lonely for the next few weeks where there's no MMA action out in the world. We'll make sure we get that done. UFC. Free UFC bet picks. What's going on, my man? Thank you so much. Really appreciate you. Oh, man, it was close. I almost got that sweep. I wanted it. I wanted it bad. All right, you guys, that'll do it for me. Thank you all so much again for being here. Get out there. Be good. If this is the last show that you tune into for the year, it shouldn't be. I'm doing more. I'm doing more content. So this should not be the last show you tune into. But if it is, I want to wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays. Please follow me at Diehard MMA Pod. We will be migrating over to my new channel starting on January 1st. And that's where you'll find my content going forward. So thank you all for being here. Follow me on social media. You guys who are on audio, you guys who are on YouTube, follow me on social media. That way you don't miss out. Like when I do move platforms, be able to find me that way. We always lose people when this shit happens. Like, stick with me. Be good. Go Vikings. Love you guys. Let's roll.